Welcome to Catalunya, everybody, and Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, here in Montmeló, with a perfect place to begin a brand new season of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, but with radical changes for 2025. The first category that we're going to see within qualifying, not so many changes, in fact, because these are the more traditional GT3 cars, unlike the cars we're going to see a little bit later on in the European Le Mans series. But then when we get to LMP3, lots of new stuff to tell you about that we're really much looking forward to doing. So let's sort of put that on the back burner, if you like. It's Johnny Palmer and Graham Goodwin of dailysportscar.com. GT, a crucial part of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and it remains so this season, Graham.
It does indeed. Welcome everybody to Barcelona for the first round of 6 of the Le Mans Cup. We'll get to where they're going to be throughout this season, including, of course, the fabulous Road to Le Mans races. Qualifying it is to start with. GT3 starts with 15 minutes for the 8 cars, Johnny Palmer, that will take to the track. Numerically dominated by Ferrari, but there are other makes and models too, and a healthy crowd here on this Saturday afternoon to see qualifying and the race later, of course, for Michelin Le Mans Cup, where there are multiple changes. Well, here's some of them. Brand new LMP3 cars, including the middle of the picture there, Johnny, the brand new Ginetta. But the other change is we're back to 2-hour races for all rounds, with the exception of Road to Le Mans and, for the moment, for Silverstone too. Yes,
there's a little bit unknown about Silverstone, and because it's been so long since we last visited there, and in fact Michelin Le Mans Cup has never been there for a championship round, so lots for the yardstick, I suppose, to swallow up before we get to Silverstone. That could change maybe nearer the time, perhaps, but it is billed as a 1 hour and 50-minute race at this stage. The other thing that's changed is the Road to Le Mans events. They used to be 55-minute races. They can be up to 60, which was the more traditional length. This will be a 15-minute session for the 8 GT3 cars, and some new names to conjure with, as always. Bronze only session though, because you have to have a bronze in your 2-driver lineup. You can be accompanied by either a silver or a gold. But that's the nice thing about these sessions, is that the bronze has a big responsibility throughout the weekend, and they get progressively quicker.
They do. You say there's some new names, there are some new names, and there's a few what we might call returning names, and one in particular that is fabulous to see back. A very new look to the Iron Dames, and we'll talk about the young lady that we'll be taking to the track in the number 83 Porsche in just a few moments. Here's the Biogas Motorsport car, the 23 Ferrari, making their return, locally based team and drivers. The kaleidoscopic livery on the Porsche at the end of pit lane, that is the EB Motors effort from Italy. The number 95 car, Fabrizio Broggi, I believe it will be, that takes to the track in that car. But Aston Martin, number 11, Code Racing Development, and 1 new car. Kessel Racing with a pair of GT3 cars in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and actually another pair in the LMS for that matter. Just 1 AF Corsa Ferrari, this time the 51. We've already seen the Biogas Ferrari. The AMG from Team Motorpark, they've been out before in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, their first full season effort with the Mercedes AMG. Iron Dames Porsche we've already talked about, and of course the EP Motors car. So we'll be seeing all of those cars shortly. We'll be seeing the rest of these cars, this galaxy of LMP3 cars later. So plenty of time, Johnny, to talk about all the changes there, and the reason why, by the way, we're back to 2-hour races, because the fuel efficiency of the new power plants aboard these LMP3 cars. But not very long before we're going to be underway here in Spain for the very first qualifying session of the season. What to expect? Bronze drivers, very many of them new to these machines. You're going to see improvements throughout this session for most, if not all, of these drivers.
There has been...
GT qualifying session will start in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is open. Remind drivers of track limits.
The voice of Gwen Bossier, who is the race director for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, again for 2025. There was a bronze test session, collective test, yesterday, so that is useful for working out who might be fast in the various categories. And Sergei Nikolay, no, he's silver, isn't he? So I'm not quite sure why he. That's because I've pulled out a document that combines both free practice one and the bronze driver test.
While you
I
take
can
a look
drill
at
down to find out the right one.
Let
Go
me,
on.
Let me tell you who's on track. It's going to be Philip Sager in the Code Racing Development Aston Martin. Kessel Racing's 17 Ferrari will be in the hands of Lorenzo Ferdinando Innocenti. The 23 Biogas Ferrari will be in the hands of Josep Mayola Comadera, my apologies. Kessel Racing's second car, I believe, will be Murat, and I always struggle with that one.
Chiudoroglu.
Thank you very much indeed.
Chiudoroglu.
Alessandro Cozzi in the 51 AF Corsa car team. Motor Park should be Heiko Neumann. Fabrizio Brocci in the 95 EBA Motors car. And the final car that will emerge from pit lane is going to be the 83 Iron Dames Porsche of Vanina Ricks. And I'm utterly delighted that Vanina's back in the saddle here in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. I'm old enough to have been around in the media room when she was scoring podiums in the overall order in the Le Mans Cup, the Le Mans series back, 2004, 5 through to 10. Something like 5 overall podium finishes. Here comes Vanina in LMP1 machinery back then, initially with Roll Centre Racing in their Dallara Judd, and then later in the Lola Aston Martin, by a variety of operations in, I think, 09 and 10 for Vanina. But here she is as the latest bronze signing for the increasingly expansive efforts of the Iron Dames.
And if you didn't know, yes, she is the daughter of a certain Jackie Ick, so continuing that very famous Belgian family name. Been to Le Mans, Vanina, been to Le Mans a number of times. I mean, I remember particularly, was it 2010?
Yep.
But I remember her racing with Rahel Fry in a Ford, I think. That might have been even prior to that.
No, I don't think she did. No, I think she had 2 races in the Lola Aston.
Okay.
And I think did she get a 5th overall in that car? I think she did. It was a good result for that car.
Blimey.
But, you know, back in the day, Vanina was a force to be reckoned with. She's been away from full-time racing for quite some time, comes back in now, 50 years old.
Indeed.
As a more mature racer, and as more mature racers do, she's back as a bronze-rated driver.
And Dad Jackie's got to a round figure, I noticed as well. So it's been a celebratory year, you would have imagined, over the last 12 months in the Ickx family. Heiko Neumann was the fastest bronze in GT3 in the bronze test. He drives the number 65 Team Motor Park Mercedes. Also there or thereabouts, Philip Sager in the Aston Martin Vantage for Code Racing Development. But everybody has now joined the session, 1 or 2 slightly behind, including the Neumann Motor Park Mercedes and indeed Vanina Ricks, who is now on her outlap for Iron Dames. So this is a sort of session where we're just going to learn who might be quick through the course of the season.
Yes,
it's all very well looking at the names on paper, but this is where the business begins.
It also gives us a chance to get a bit of a sighting session for the very different look we're going to see this year for all of the cars in the Michelin Le Mans Cup. I don't think there's a single car in the session with, oh no, my apologies, the Biogas car, pretty similar look and the same driver lineup as we had last season, but pretty much everything else we've got to get used to. Different cars, different numbers, different liveries, different drivers, and this is the look for AF Corsa in 2025, Johnny, the 51 car, and this is Alessandro Cozzi. At the moment he's going pretty well, other than the fact he's just done track limits and lost that lap. Times at the moment not that important. I'll tell you that the graphic that says Inter Europol leading this session is incorrect, but the time is correct. It's actually the Code Racing Aston Martin and Philip Sager that leads the session.
Track limits being observed in a few crucial places. So the exit of turn 9, which is the pretty fast right-hander on the back section of the circuit, middle sector, but very easy to run out wide there and actually lose time. You could also gain time if you use plenty of curb. Exit of turn 10, which is that tricky approach to a tight left-hander that goes underneath a fairly substantial structure, which was partly finished last year. Well, it was the skeleton of the framework that was in place for this race meeting 12 months ago. It is now completed and provides just an unbelievable view of the back section of the circuit. We were lucky enough to be up there last night as part of our sort of welcome hospitality, along with a few others. It wasn't just me and you.
You, me, and about 75 close friends.
Yeah, I did notice that we were the first to arrive, though. I mean, they did have those
two
King
words.
and then there's me and you.
They did have those 2 words, free bar.
Good point. Yeah,
but
doesn't take much.
It is an astonishing structure, an astonishing view. One of the best I've seen in motorsport. You're pretty much 90% of the track from turn 10 to the end of the lap.
Yeah, it's visible. And the exit at turn 9 you can see as well. So imagine that on the first lap of, for instance, the ELMS race tomorrow would be an unbelievable place to be positioned. Track limits also on the exit of turn 13 and 14. And if you breach limits out of 14, you not only lose the lap you are on, but the next lap as well, because it gives you such a slingshot down the main start-finish straight.
Lap times are still tumbling, but we're going to get to focus about now, coming on towards halfway through this session, to where things are sitting. Literally every sector I'm looking at on the timing screen is an improvement on the previous one for every driver right now, with the exception of the ones who've just hit track limits. It is, though, Alessandro Cozzi in the number 51 AF Corsa Ferrari that is fastest at the moment, a 1:44.454, and that's well over a second clear of the 17 Ferrari of Lorenzo Ferdinando Innocenti, with the Code Racing Aston Martin of Philip Sager for a 3rd quickest. But some big gaps at the moment. They will, times and gaps should start to come down as Heiko Neumann does, as you said he might, Johnny, as we approach that halfway mark, hits the top of the timing scoring screen with a 1:43.549. Vanina Ricks goes 3rd.
So Team Motor Park, the Austrian team, but with German driver Heiko Neumann. That is a significant step up for Vanina X from 7th or 8th positions. But remember, she was one of the latest cars to join the session, so has had a bit more time now to increase or decrease the pace. And Vanina X goes up to 3rd place. Innocenti slips a position as a result. Philip Sager still capable of a bit more in the Code Racing development car. Sager, in fact, as he crosses the line, goes up to 3rd position in the Aston Martin. So great spread of manufacturers as well. Mercedes faster than Ferrari, Aston, Porsche, and then 3 more Ferraris in a bit of a queue. Biogas Motorsport improves there with Josip Maiola.
And just a brief shot to the back of the Castle Racing garage. Coaching along there, another of our veteran additions to this year. Andre Beliki is back with us, the Don, as we always used to call him back in his Rebellion LMP1 days. But he's back as the pro driver in one of the 2 Castle Racing cars. And it's great to see him back in the saddle.
Terrific. So again, what this championship and sometimes the ELMS tends to do is just remind former stars that motor racing is still a great laugh. You know, the hobby is still there, and it provides this foundation to either do some coaching or indeed just get back into a race car for a little bit.
Indeed.
And you rediscover the love for it. It's very much a team effort at this level because you're sharing cars. 2 drivers in this championship, 3 predominantly in the ELMS. So responsibility is nicely spread across the piece. Here's the 51 of Alessandro Cozzi for AF Corsa. And at times this car is quickest, 9/10 of a second slower though at the moment from Neumann.
But up on the pole time after sector 2 and goes to the top. It's a 1:43.461, under a 1/10 of a second the gap though. We wait for Philip Sager to come through because he's on a quick lap as well. Heiko Neumann still 2nd, Innocenti pops up to 3rd, Sager goes 2nd, and the gap between 1st and 3rd, Johnny Palmer, 88 thousandths of a second.
Yeah, not much at all, and this is what we were expecting it to really concertina within those first few positions, as they proved in the various sessions earlier on in the weekend. A couple yesterday, well, both free practice sessions and the bronze test, in fact. Here's the Iron Dames car of Vanina Ricks. She again could close the very small margins yet further, 1.1 away from Cozzi, who's quickest, but she's only 7/10 of a second away from the Innocenti time and the Kessel Racing Ferrari number 17.
Well, she's going quickly, but going more quickly. Kotze on a good lap. Better lap still from Philipp Sager. Better lap still at the moment from Heiko Neumann. So this isn't done. 4.5 minutes to go. The gap, as I said, under a second, a tenth of a second rather. But those gaps are coming down. Through goes Heiko Neumann, takes pole position for the moment, 1:43.376. But the gap to Alexandra Kotze now under a tenth of a second.
One or two orange-backed messages appearing on our screen. They are just generally warnings. Track limits being reported about car number 23, which is the Biogas Motorsport Ferrari of Josep Maiola. But Neumann extends the gap a little again. Something else changed there. That was as Kotze crossed the line. That was an improvement, but it didn't take the Kotze Ferrari above Neumann on the timing screen, but he's closed the gap from 88 thousandths down to 56 thousandths of a second.
But this is one to watch. Philipp Sager actually drops time, unfortunately for him, in the final sector, stays third. He'd been up on the provisional pole time out of sector 2, so there's more to come potentially from the debuting Code Racing Development Aston Martin. Heiko Neumann, though, looking strong here, under pressure from Alessandra Kotze. Looking to see where the form of Vanina Ricks is right now. Pretty good stuff from Vanina, but cars ahead of her going a little more quickly. Top 3 all where they are on their current lap, up on the provisional pole time. Heiko Neumann almost 2 tenths up after sector 2. Over a tenth up after sector 1, Alessandro Kotze, and just a few thousandths up after sector 1, Philipp Sager. Just a few thousandths down, by the way, Innocenti in 4th. It's properly close, this. This is going to be quite the season if this kind of level of competition carries on. It is an improvement from Heiko Neumann. It's a 1:43.0 this time, so that pulls out 0.3 of a second. That's a significant gap now for the first time in just a few minutes here. Philipp Sager still pushing though, and close.
Glorious sound of the Team Motor Park Mercedes. That's not the only Mercedes here this weekend, but AMG's no stranger to this particular championship. What we've never had before in recent ELMS history, at least, is a Mercedes AMG in the GT class within that. So we're really looking forward to that addition. A good spread of manufacturers, the biggest for about a decade.
Yes, it is. I think it's
ELMS.
2014, I think we worked out.
So slightly more than that.
But that was manufacturers spread across 2 classes, Johnny.
Yes.
GT and GTC, which was the, in old money, was the GT3 class. Philipp Sager goes second with that latest effort, quarter of a second down. But we've now got Mercedes AMG from Aston Martin, then 2 Ferraris, then this Porsche. As Vanina Ricks is keeping herself well in the mix here and has got potential to pull this car further up if she can put together a lap. It's this middle sector that's been letting her down in the last couple of circulations. Quick in the first sector, dropping a bit of time to the cars ahead of her in the second sector. As we know, as you get deeper into these sessions, final sector tends to kind of drop people away. Neumann, Sager, Kotze, Innocenti, X, Roggi, Comadera, the top 7 in this session.
Just caught sight of Murat Chiradoroglu's Kessel Racing Ferrari, number 33 there, creeping through shot. Is the Aston Martin, which is second for Code Racing Development in the hands of Austrian driver Philipp Sager. He's heading out of that difficult turn 10. You come from high speed, then down a number of gears, probably second gear through turn 10, and accelerate out, but only very briefly before having to get back on the brakes for turn 12. And I meant to make the point that at least one of the Ferraris has gone pretty wide coming out of turn 13, which is easily done, but in this, the qualifying session, you would get laps deleted straight away for all 4 wheels off.
Just looking to see who could improve here, Johnny, in these last few seconds of this session. 11 seconds on the clock, but of course they'll complete the laps they're on. First to take the checkered flag, or will he? That will be another lap for the EB Motors car. So checkered flag is out now. Up on his own time is Heiko Neumann. Code Racing Development's Philipp Sager is on pit lane and will go no further, so therefore will not improve from second. Alessandro Cozzi, though, is on a good lap here. Can he keep this together? Because there is potential to get onto the front row of this grid. Also on a good lap at the moment is Vanina Ix, but again she's dropped a chunk of time in that middle sector.
Yeah. Josip Mayola's seen the checkered flag, so it's going to be no higher than 7th for the Biogas Motorsport car. Fabrizio Broggi's found some time. The Ebi Motors 95 Porsche up to 5th position as Heiko Neumann crosses the line and did not improve, but he backed well off actually. Takes the checkered flag and should comfortably be on pole position. He's a quarter of a second clear of his nearest rival, and you've already mentioned that Aston Martin is in pit lane. Here's Vanina crossing the line, and it isn't an improvement as you rather suggested. So a second down from the Neumann time and 6th position. We're still waiting for 3 more. Alessandro Cozzi, Lorenzo Innocenti and Fabrizio Broggi to finish the session.
It's Fabrizio Broggi that is the one to watch. He's still got potential to improve, but it looks to me like the bite has gone out of this session. Don't see Heiko Neumann being under any threat at all, but the one driver that is on a lap with the potential for a major improvement is this man. Coming to the line now. At the moment, Fabrizio Broggi sits 5th. What can he do on this final lap? Improves, but not in position. It's 5th place for him. So it's pole position for Team Motorpark and Heiko Neumann.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I suppose that was predictable to an extent, purely because of Heiko Neumann's capability during the bronze test particularly, but also has been quick in each of the free practice sessions. It's one thing being quick on a Friday. You need to translate that into the following day. All the qualifying and racing is done in the Michelin Le Mans Cup today. It's actually quite a late finish, it being a 2-hour race now rather than last year's 1 hour and 50, as we've already mentioned. So it'll take us through till 20 past 8, which by my calculations is spot on sunset time here at Circuit de Catalunya, Barcelona. So we will be starting to lose the light. That's fine though, because all the cars carry headlights, and it'll just add to the atmosphere, particularly for that podium as well, at about 8:30 this evening. And then the Michelin Le Mans Cup paddock will pack away, unless there are teams, of course, that are also involved in the ELMS. 1 minute 43.0 then for Heiko Neumann to take the first provisional pole position of the season. We'll get a full classification in about half an hour's time or so. Philippe Saga for Code Racing Development and Aston Martin make it 2 front-engine GTs on the front row. Then the first of the Ferraris for Alessandro Cozzi and AF Corsa number 51, and Lorenzo Innocenti in his Kessel racing car. Vanina Ix just outside the top 5, but there's still scope for improvement. The other thing that's changed year on year is the amount of bronze driver time that you've got to do. It's a longer race, so therefore it's no longer 40 minutes, it's a 50-minute stint as a minimum that you have to do as the bronze. There's no defined pit stop window as such, it's just make sure you do that relevant driver time, and then the change, and then it gets really exciting when the silvers and golds take over. However, we must talk about a brand new era in LMP3 history, both for chassis and for engines, Graham.
We will, and we're going to talk as well about a change in structure for the Le Mans Cup too, because there are going to be 2 LMP3 classes. The first we're going to see is Pro-Am. It's effectively what was LMP3 last year, so effectively it is with at least 1 bronze driver plus a Pro. That's what we're going to see first. 16 of these cars. Why the changes? What are the changes? Well, the main reason for the change is that the trusty old Nissan V8 engine that is powered in both 5-litre and 5.6-litre versions, LMP3 from the start in 2015, is out of production. That's now been replaced by a 3.6-litre twin-turbo V6 from Toyota, again prepared by Orica, with the full powertrain. So whatever chassis we talk about, it's the same powertrain. And that is blueprinted to the same performance levels. Broadly similar kind of lap times you're going to see from the previous iteration. Slightly better aero for these cars, and as we said a little earlier, because of the more modern, if you like, powertrain, significantly more fuel efficient. 16 LMP3 cars in this class, and a familiar look in terms of the spread for chassis in this class. Principally Ligier. This is one of those 2 new Ligiers. It's the JSP3 25. This is 23 Events Racing, one of our new teams for this year. 325 for JSP3, P3, LMP3, and 25 for 2025. And the other chassis we will see in this session is the Duquesne, the D09 now, rather than the D08 as we had previously. More motorsport here, the number 99 car, the dad and lad, father and son effort of the Van der Snels. And good to see them back with us. Mark van der Snel, it should be, for this session.
Yeah.
We'll talk about LMP3 when we see those cars in the next session. Concentrate for the moment on what for these teams and cars will be a refreshingly quiet session in terms of traffic. RHGP, we saw them last year with a really excellent effort that came close to scoring a championship win, Johnny. They're back with 3 Duquesnes this year. Yeah,
mightily impressive. It's quite some commitment, isn't it, to a championship that they've performed well in the past, but still looking for an elusive title. RHGP with a background in single-seater racing more so, but it's been fun to sort of see their regular single-seater drivers have a go in a 2-seater sports car. We'll refer to obviously LMP3 Pro-Am, but yes, the other category is simply known as LMP3. There's not a Pro after it, so we'll have to be a little bit careful where we use that. We might say non-Pro at times for these gold numbered cars, but the purple numbers, which is the same as last year LMP3, are these LMP3 Pro-Am driver combinations.
This is the Motorsport 98 car, Eric de Donker, one of the veterans, if you like, of this field. We saw someone who's even more of a veteran briefly aboard one of the high-class racing cars. Mark Patterson, what great to see him back. Racing Spirit Le Mans. It's not the Racing Spirit Le Mans car. Yes, it is the Racing Spirit Le Mans car. We've got a lot of green cars this year. And we're going to have to get used to new colours on these cars, as well as a new look to the LMP3 cars this season. Generally speaking, what you're seeing is the cars, because they require a little bit more cooling for the turbo engines, a little bit more blocky around the sides on these. But actually, when you see these cars face to face, the proportions look great. This is Reiter Engineering, another dad and lad effort for Horst Felbermayr and Horst Felix Felbermayr. We saw previously in the Ligier European Series a couple of years ago. Into Europol competition, have just one car here. We're expecting potentially a second. It's 42 cars across the 3 classes, which is a massive grid. But down by a couple, we may well see those 2 cars later this season. But 42 cars, and they are ready to go for what is going to be the competitive start of a brand new era in what's become an incredibly important part of the ladder in international sports car racing, Johnny. It's given us new names to conjure with. Jan van Uter, back in the day, showed his form first in LMP3. Milton Jacobsen, of course, not that long ago in the LMS Championship winner in LMP3, and now a hypercar driver for the Peugeot team. Rinaldi Racing here. Steve Parrow will be coming to the session aboard the 66 car.
Now, one of the more vulnerable things about the outgoing LMP3 cars was the rear and the so-called bullets.
Yes.
Rear left and rear right, and they became quite susceptible to a little bit of contact, and it would either totally detach one of those bullets, or they would be hanging off and they'd need to be repaired at the next pit stop because they also carry a tail light. Has that been rectified in any way in the new design, do we think?
It has on one car, which we're not going to see in this session. We'll talk about that one a little later. They've beefed up various things.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that they've had an opportunity to take a look at some of the vulnerabilities, some of the serviceability, etc., and there's been some marginal changes made. The important thing, though, from the position of the teams, is they have had the opportunity to upgrade an existing car. Now, the vast majority have opted not to do that.
30 seconds to open pit exit for the LMP3 Pro-Am session.
Okay.
So there was a way of taking, for instance, the JSP 320 from last year and turning it into a 25 car.
Please remind drivers of track limits.
And the restricting factor...
pit exit will open in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is open. This is the beginning of the LMP3 Pro-Am qualifying session.
And away they go. Restricting factor, of course, is money. You know, and the other point here is which of those JSP 320s were limited mileage chassis. So I can tell you, for instance, I believe every Duquesne we'll see in every class is a new car. The other two chassis we will see later, the Ginetta and the Adesse, all new cars. As for the Ligiers, 25 brand new cars. The remainder across both Michelin Le Mans Cup and indeed in the European Le Mans Series are upgraded chassis. Should be no real difference, but it's a matter of basically how tired do you think the components are, and that's a call the teams have made. Yeah. Because out we go for 14 at least of the 16 cars that are already out on track.
Yeah, so again a bronze only session. The difference arrives when we see the next batch of LMP3 cars out on track, but again we're expecting these sessions through the course of the year to get progressively faster, even within this 15 minutes, as people become more used to, yes, their cars, but also current track conditions and the amount that they can push on this one set of tyres. It's likely, I don't think we'll see many cars actually switching to another set, although we've begun a new competition regarding the tyre allocation. So it's my understanding that you'll use these qualifying tyres in the race, therefore you don't want to take too much out of them. And everybody has joined the session, and all very quickly as well. That was quite a well-populated queue. Here comes the number 88. So Fabien Laverne, one of those last cars to rejoin. Careful not to cross that very, very long blend line here at Barcelona, which delivers you into the apex of the first corner.
Meantime, here comes the first of the cars to start the first flying lap, and that is going to be Breton Racing, 62 car Ben Stone. Breton Racing, by the way, coming to the Michelin Le Mans Cup as reigning Asia Le Mans Series champions after a really tightly fought battle. Small but very effective field of LMP3s, the previous generation of LMP3s, but they come here as reigning champions in an ACO championship.
So riding the crest of a wave, and it's another team, Breton Racing, who continue to expand as interest grows, and obviously that's a natural thing that will happen with success as well. More and more drivers wanting to sign up with successful teams. The 62 car driven then by Ben Stone. And some of those later cars to join: Horst Felbermeyer, Julien Lemoine in 84 for ANS Motorsport, and actually Romano Ricci in the 88 car. So that was a driver ID problem. Yes, we shouldn't see Laverne in this session. Fabien is the silver.
Okay. So amongst these teams, by the way, actually not that many brand new teams in this session. The one team to explain is 23 Events Racing, the 28 car with Terence Woodward, long-time driver, of course, of 360 Racing. But 23 Events Racing, I believe, Johnny, are a result of a bit of a split with the MV2S squad. Steve Paulette, I think. No, it's not Steve Paulette's team, is it? But 23 Events Racing have been born out of the end of the MV2S effort that we saw for the last 2 or 3 years.
And Terence Woodward joining Tim Merrieux, who is the silver in that combination. So there are golds involved in LMP3 Pro-Am. We will see during the race later on, hopefully. So Pierre Caffer, Felipe Fernandez, Larza, and Garrett Grist now gold as well, so he'll be involved later.
We're saying about Vanina Ricks and Andrea Bellicchi. Well, there's Pierre Caffer, now 48 years old, Pierre, but doesn't look it, damn him. But an ex-Audi LMP1 factory driver. Yep. 2 decades ago, still mightily quick. Terence Woodward, by the way, goes to the top of timing and scoring with quite a gap, 1.3 seconds from Ben Stone and Stefan Aust. So 23 Events Racing, the 28 car at the top of timing and scoring from Breton Racing 62 and the 71 Rinaldi. It's a Ligier 1, 2, 3 at the moment. 2 Duquesnes in this session, by the way. 1 for CD Sport and their new white and blue livery, and RSGP's number 88, which we've already seen.
Tim Merrieux, the teammate of Terence Woodward, a race winner a couple of years ago in the Alpine Cup, one-make series when he raced for AutoGP, but he's not done any ACO rules racing to this point, the 20-year-old from Dijon, so it'll be interesting to see him take on board what should be quite a quick car by the way that Terence Woodward's got out of the blocks in this session to be the fastest. 1.3 clear of Ben Stone, but one or two others are just putting foundation laps in initially, and then they'll really start to push.
Romano Ricci goes second, but Ben Stone goes to the top at the moment by 4.8 seconds. That's the tyre kicking in.
Yeah.
And this is a real time now. 1:39.154. Terence Woodward comes through into the 1:39s, but 7.5 tenths back. Stefan Aust just outside that mark. Shahan Zarkisian in the CD Sport Duquesne puts his car second, half a second back from Ben Stone. Breton Racing, CD Sport, 23 events racing, Ligier, Duquesne, Ligier, your top three.
With the second of the Duquesnes in the hands of Romano Ricci with some more work to do, I wonder whether Ricci's actually had a lap taken away, or is it just the difference between those cars that have had a lap or two to get the tyres in the window and those that haven't quite. So Julien Lemoine, one of those cars, the later coming out of the pits. So the ANS Motorsport car will certainly move up towards the top 10 in a couple of laps' time.
I think he might do better than that more quickly at the moment. He's
yes.
up on the pole time on the lap he's currently on. So Ben Stone on a quick lap, but on a quicker lap, Julien Lemoine does indeed go from bottom to top. The 84 NS Motorsports Ligier to the top of timing and scoring. He's the first man into the 138. It's a 138.953, 2 tenths of a second up on Ben Stone. ANS Motorsport lead Breton Racing.
For reference, last year's pole time here at Barcelona was done by Fabien Michel in the 85 RHGP car, a 136.3. We're going to see 136s with these new cars?
I'm not sure we are, is the honest answer. I think we're going to see, time is coming down from this. Bear in mind, we've got the pro drivers to come in the next class.
True. What about tyres compared to last year? Is this the same?
Pretty much the
same compound from Michelin? Yeah.
Shahan Zarkisian goes to the top, 17 thousandths of a second clear of Julien Lemoine. So all of a sudden it's CD Sport, it's a Duquesne at the top of timing and scoring.
Yeah, and that's actually not the first time we've seen that in many sessions like this through the years. Duquesne, not the most numerous compared to the Ligier, but they do have one or two that are very, very fast. And at times the Duquesne looks a tad quicker down the straight. It did in its old format down the straight, but then the twisty stuff tended to favour the Ligier. So it was a fascinating battle for an hour and 50-minute race. Remember, back to 2 hours though for 2025. Here's Julien Lemoine, one of the later runners out of the pit lane, and the 84 car is definitely there because it goes to the top now by a clear second. So the 84 car leapfrogging Shahan Zarkisian, the Lebanese driver, and CD Sport number 31 just down a spot.
First into the 137s this time. Times are absolutely tumbling, aren't they, as they get their head around this new package. And they will have done some qualifying simulation, but the joy of having low fuel load and new tyres on these cars just it wakes them up remarkably.
Is Stefan Aust currently fifth. By the way, Romano Ricci all of a sudden up to third, but that's changed a great deal again because then Terence Woodward streamed across the line to go third. Stefan Aust goes fourth in this car, the 71 for Rinaldi. Shahan Zarkisian for CD Sport fifth. Romano Ricci tumbles back down the order to sixth place. So it's a snakes and ladders session for 1 or 2. They gain massive ground, but then the cars behind them sweep through and you're back to where you started.
Yep. There's still very quick times coming in here under, well, it's what, 5.5 minutes to go now. Romano Ricci, he's in the mix here in the RHGP car. He hasn't yet really, though, Johnny, put together his optimal lap.
Well, up on personal best times from earlier in the session, and if he continues this trajectory, he'll actually be faster than Julien Lemoine, but it just depends whether the Duquesne can be quicker at the end of Sector 2, which he reaches now. Turning point for Turn 10 is just into sector 3 of 3.
Drops half a second.
This is the technical bit where I don't think the Duquesne's quite as strong as some of the other Ligiers in the session. 4 Ligiers then locking out those top 4 places. Shahan Sarkissian and Romano Ricci in their Duquesnes 5th and 6th. And in fact, Julien Lemoine says, that's as much as I can give. I don't think I can utilise these tyres anymore. 0.6 of a second clear, and he's already parked the car.
Indeed. So looking behind, who is in a position to be able to improve? Well, Terence Woodward, just about 0.3 off after sector 2, the provisional pole time. He goes second. He goes second, and he's just a quarter of a second back. So has he got any more for the 23 Events Racing car, the 28?
Stefan Aust also into pit lane, so 4th position and no better for the Rinaldi Racing number 71. There's the 84 then, hanging on to provisional pole with 4 minutes remaining on the clock. Terence Woodward's got to within a quarter of a second, and he's gone even faster through the first sector.
He's
so
0.2 up on the provisional pole time,
and he needs 2.5 tenths.
He does indeed. No, sorry. He's more than 2.5 tenths up. He's two tenths up. He's 4.5 tenths quicker than he was.
So that's quicker than the 137.9 that's been done by Julien Lemoine. So he's found the 0.25 and he's gone 2 tenths further than that. Yes.
So the crucial moment is going to come in about 30 seconds time when he clears sector 2, and could we then see a very different set of faces at A&S Motorsport, because the 23 Events Racing effort here is closing. The answer is he's dropped time, but not a huge amount of time.
39.9 for Lemoine as his best, 40.2 for Terence Woodward. So does that bring him back towards, well, he's just short of 2 tenths slower than the 37.9 that he's aiming towards. This is going to be nip and tuck though, coming out of turn 14.
Brilliantly quick third sector in the last lap. He's done track limits. He would have been outside, but he would have improved his lap time just by a few hundredths, but he's track limits in the final sector, and I think that might be it. That might just be the best that he can do. Julien Lemoine it is that sits atop here from Terence Woodward. Ben Stone is now pitted. Shahan Sarkissian takes 4th in the order and gets ahead of Stefan Aust. So Shahan Sarkissian for CD Sport at the moment is the lead of the 2 Duquesnes, 4th quickest in this session. Terence Woodward's quick again in that first sector.
Yeah, 28.8. It's not as good as he managed a lap ago, but it is faster than Julien Lemoine's lap through that first sector.
If he can hook up a middle sector here, it's on.
Yeah.
And also quick, Shahan Sarkissian is a 10th up on the pole time after his first sector. So still life in this session at the very sharp end.
And actually Sarkissian improved on the previous lap, so he's riding the crest of a wave. Off again though through the middle sector is Terence Woodward. He drops about exactly the time he needed. So 0.27 down when he's trying to find 0.25 to at least equal Julien Lemoine, and a parked Julien Lemoine, remember. Is he going to run wide again, Terence Woodward? Might just get away with that.
But keep an eye not just on Terence Woodward, and we should, but Shahan Sarkissian not at the moment on a provisional pole time, but will improve if he can keep this momentum. Terence Woodward does not improve. Where is Sarkissian? He's coming down towards turn 14. This could be a front row start if he can keep this momentum up.
0.143 down, but nevertheless it's better than 4th. In fact, it's 3rd. So Shahan Sarkissian will switch from one side of the second row to the other, and there's still time remaining with 50 seconds on the clock. So the blue and white Duquesne could yet make the front row. Terence Woodward is not as quick through the first sector, so this may well be an in-lap for the 23 Events Racing car. But Shahan Sarkissian, I'd be surprised if he backs off. It depends on how he goes through this first sector.
Yeah, Romano Ricci, he's actually gone quicker. He is up on pole time after the first sector. We know it's sector 2 that's a crucial one here. Keeping an eye, by the way, on Mark van der Stel, who's on a quick time. I don't think it's going to trouble the top, the front row, but looks as if he might well be able to improve matters for the More Motorsport 99 car. He's sitting down in 8th. Here he is. He's about to complete the lap. What can he do? He goes 4th. Excellent stuff from Mark van der Stel. And he loses
it, yes, because he sort of all of a sudden dropped back down to 10th position. Not 10th, somewhere else. Anyway, that's the Motorsport 98 car of Eric de Donker. But the big question is, what can Shahan Sarkisian do? Again, can't quite make it work through the middle sector. The first sector was very impressive.
It's the kicker as we get deeper into this session, isn't it? That middle sector is just draining life out of those tyres.
Mark van der Snel, to answer my question, slipped back down to 8th and has seen the checkered flag now in the 99 More Motorsport car. Sarkisian over the line, no improvement, so he will stay in 3rd for the home crew of CD Sport. And Julien Lemoine, who pitted with, well, probably more than 5 minutes left on the clock, but knew that the 137.9 would leave him there or thereabouts. And despite one or two threats from Terence Woodward, Shahan Sarkisian, and at times Romano Ricci, that car surely good enough now for pole position for ANS Motorsport.
Yeah, the final couple of players that look like they might be threatening. They both have done track limits in this final knockings, and it's going to be Julien Lemoine, who's going to be our pole position sitter. Terence Woodward, excellent stuff from both of those two players here.
So these were the closing laps for Shahan Sarkisian's Duquesne. And did this result in a track limit infringement? No, it shouldn't have done. So Shahan Sarkisian pushing the envelope, but not too much. Terence Woodward did get a lap deleted between, I think it was between turn 13 and 14 when he ran a tad wide. He was always very neat and tidy coming out of 14 and onto the main straight. But Julien Lemoine, no stopping the ANS Motorsport pilot, number 84, and gets the first pole position of the season to, well, look very promising for LMP3 Pro-Am for this brand new campaign. He shares that car with Paul Trajani, who is the silver Frenchman.
And becomes the answer to the quiz question, who set the first pole position in the new era of LMP3? Well, the answer is Julien Lemoine in the ANS Motorsport, the 84 Ligier. Now we get to look, Johnny, on pit lane at the LMP3 class.
Yes.
We're talking a little bit about that as Julien celebrates his pole position, as well he should. Well done, sir. The briefest of shots on camera of one of the additions to the grid here, because uniquely, I don't think it's certainly not happened ever before on a full season, all 4 available LMP3 chassis will contest the Michelin Le Mans Cup this season.
Julien Lemoine also flying the flag for the Ligier European Series because he was a JS2R champion in 2023 and dominated that particular year. In the end, outpacing in the championship David Rodrigo and Max Meyer, who's also making the step up. So exciting to see the talent that the Ligier European Series continues to unearth. And the ANS Motorsport crew will start from pole position in LMP3 Pro-Am by a quarter of a second over the 23 Events Racing car of Terence Woodward, number 28, CD Sports Shahan Sarkisian, number 31, and Ben Stone's Breton Racing, number 62. Stefan Aust in his Rinaldi Racing car pitted fairly early, number 71, to finish in 5th position, ahead of Romano Ricci. We could see quite a bit more from the R-Race GP car, particularly in the opening stint, where generally the bronzes will start. There's nothing actually in the regulations that says that that has to be the case, but obviously with the safety car potential, maybe a full course yellow, if everything gets bunched up at about half distance, you want your silvers and your golds in at the end when it gets really intense. Now, what this new category, labelled simply as LMP3, brings us is silver, or in some cases silver gold combinations.
I think 2 silver golds in this. There's going to be some familiar teams and colours from the previous session, including this car, aside from, of course, the number panel, which is this kind of yellowy gold colour. But it is a further 18 LMP3 cars, Ligiers, Duquesnes, plus 1 Ginetta, we saw it briefly, the number 3 car from Decar Engineering, and 2 Ades cars from Nielsen Racing, a pair of those cars that we'll see on pit lane and on track. Some familiar names amongst the teams, some familiar names amongst the drivers, but an awful lot of new for all of you at home, and certainly Johnny and I here in the commentary booth to get our heads around from this first session onwards. So bear with us as we get into spotter guide mode.
The other thing I've just had to check is who is eligible to qualify in this session. You can't put your gold into the car, which makes sense because there's only two crews that actually have gold drivers. It is a silver only session for qualifying in LMP3, just as the previous LMP3 Pro-Am session was bronze only. So,
but what it does mean is that
it's a choice to be made, isn't
pretty
it?
much all bar 2 of these cars or teams have got to the choice of either of the drivers that they're going to field. Only 2 gold ranked drivers in the field. They are Colin Noble, back in the saddle, this time for Nielsen Racing, and their number 7 Ades, and David Drew in the 97 CLX Motorsport car. So we can tell you immediately the 97 will see Cedric Ultramar, another graduate from the Ligier European Series, aboard the car. And I'm excited to see just how Tom Fleming does. We're going to see Tom in the European Le Mans Series as well this season. But a talented young man from the UK. I was having a long chat with Matt Griffin, who has been looking closely at this young man's career, and I think that's a name we're going to hear more of. Winner of the Ferrari Challenge at Finale Mondiale a couple of years ago, out of nowhere really, and keep seeing his name popping up. I think that's a name to come that is going to be conjured with throughout this season and beyond. Quiet at the moment until the cars make their way to the end of pit lane.
Yes, he hails from very close to Bishop
West,
Stortford.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, just
I thought it was northwest.
no, Hatfield Broadoak, unless he's moved.
Okay.
I do need to check that in truth, but I think he's close to kind of the Suffolk border. Might be useful if you can get flights out of Stansted. We'll check with him, but he is definitely a talent for sure, and plenty of teams queuing up really for the services of the 22-year-old.
Well, we know, looking at the number 85 cars, Adrian David is aboard this car. We saw how talented he was last season. But, we'll wait for the call from race control for the start of this session. We say 18 cars, 1 Ginetta, 2 Ades. It is 4 Duquesne, and the remainder of the cars are Ligier. But another little historic moment, as I said, the first time in a full season we've had all 4 chassis options listed in an ACO rules session. That's great to see. And you mentioned the point a little earlier, Johnny, and if we get the opportunity to see the rear end of the Ades, you'll see that is the one chassis that has a quick change rear end.
Ah, yes.
Now that does come with a bit of a penalty for that car because it's heavier.
Right.
So there is one, the Ades, in fact both the Ades, and there is the quick change rear end.
Oh, yeah. And just a more substantial framework perhaps behind as well, which means that those legality panels, the cheese wedge, they don't look particularly cheese wedge actually on the Ades, but if one does break away, then the whole of the rear deck can be replaced. 50 car has looked phenomenally impressive in the free practice sessions. Lena Bühler actually topped FP1 with a 136.176, and then Quintarelli, her teammate, only 0.282 to be exact behind in that first of the timed sessions. So the 50 car across the piece could be a very strong entity this weekend.
Look, Quintarelli, by the way, for those
last reminder from my side on track limits. Track limits are being monitored by camera and as well by judges of fact.
So
30 seconds to start the qualifying session for
Le Mans
LMP3
Series
cars.
race winner in LMP3 this season. And we're about to hear from race control again.
Or so you thought.
I did think that, but I was wrong.
Don't worry.
Another quick shot of the Ades, and we will now hear from
LMP3 qualifying session will start in 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is now open.
Quintarelli, a very famous name.
I was about to say, it's no relation to
Ronnie.
No.
I couldn't find a connection.
No, there is not. There is not. It's one of the first things I first saw this young man in, I think it was Formula Regional Middle East, supporting the Asia Le Mans Series a couple of seasons ago. Did check that, as you generally would.
Yeah.
Second generation racers, not that unusual these days, but he is not one of them. Certainly not with Ronnie, not his dad or his mum for that matter, raced anywhere else. I couldn't tell you.
Past, yeah. You would have thought that was a relatively rare name, but perhaps not in Italy.
Let's tell you who's out there already. Team Virage's 16 car is in the hands of reigning champion for the Ligier European Series, Theo Mercouris. Here comes the Ginetta, the number 3 car from DK Engineering. It's White Bricacek, a name to conjure with from last season. Max Meyer, another Ligier European Series graduate, I think I'm right in saying, from the 20 high-class racing squad. Bentje Valent, also with Asia Le Mans Series pedigree, in the Writer Engineering 25. Just out on track now, A&S Motorsports' Alex Schnoss, in the number 6 Ligier. Breton Racing's Hayden Chance, that's the other winner in the Ligier European Series. Theo and Hayden splitting that crew. Romain Favre in the Forestier Racing by VPS, Mathieu Vassevier's team here. 23 events racing, we've already talked about Matteo Quintarelli. Arthur Rogion in the CD Sport number 30. Oscar Tuño, familiar to us, but another new team for the Michelin Le Mans Cup, out in Prototype Cup Germany, a Duquesne from Gebhardt Motorsports. Team Virage, Samir Ben in their 74 car. Adrian David, we've spoken about in the 85 RSGP car, and it's Joel Granfors in the Cesta 86 car. Alvis Radella in CLX Motorsports 87 Ligier. The 92 Forestier by VPS is Charles Roussin, another Ligier, and Cedric Altomar, yet another ex-Ligier European Series. What a great service that's providing the ladder is the 97. And just shooting back up the order to complete the running in the other Ades, it is Henri Kubitz Olate in the number 4 Ades from Nielsen Racing. Lots of new.
There certainly is, and there are some cases of teams renaming themselves as well, so we should draw people's attention to, if they followed the championship for a few years, 87 and 97 are Cool Racing numbers historically.
Yes.
They still are, it's just that Cool Racing have become CLX Motorsports over the winter. C, Alexandre Coigny.
Correct.
L, Nicolas Lapierre.
Yes.
And the X, just extra...
Because it looks great. Looks good.
Just extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire. Expensive.
Probably. A lot of that as well. But great to have CLX Motorsport here.
It is indeed.
You know, brand new branding, you know, look, but the typical colours, well, certainly on the LMP2 cars, are they kind of grey and blue on CLX as well?
Same, and the livery's done this year, I'm pretty certain, by my good friend Daniel Hanson, who some years ago helped us to pull together an extraordinary April Fool.
You like those, don't you?
Yes, I do, for Daily Sports Car, putting together a very convincing Volvo DPI that ended up being featured on the IMSA NBC coverage as it fooled the commentary team.
Terrific.
It still puts a smile on my face. Bentje Valent for Writer Engineering is top of the times in the very early running, but there's a lot more to come into the 139s early on though, so that bodes well as everybody gets themselves sorted out. As I said earlier, what will help improve times is the fact that we've got these two pretty much, I mean 16 cars in LMP3 Pro Am, 18 in this class. The combined field of LMP3 is bigger than we've seen before, but actually fewer cars on track for the qualifying sessions.
It'll be an interesting rule when the supplementary regulations come out a little bit later on in the year regarding the road to Le Mans, because always typically one of those two races, qualifying is free as far as driver choice is concerned. So if you have got a gold, I wonder whether you would be able to utilise that for qualifying for one of those races. I don't think you'd ever start one of your gold drivers, even in a short 60-minute race, but there's a little bit of scope and wiggle room within that Road to Le Mans event. One race Thursday, one race Saturday morning in the lead up to the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Entry level in international terms this may be, but we've seen throughout the history of the Michelin Le Mans Cup teams doing some extraordinary work on strategy, looking at the rule book, you and I have been victims of this several times. The rule book has been forced to be into some supplementary regulations once or twice during the season, because smart minds on the pit wall have spotted an opportunity. New fastest car in the session, by the way, Charles Roussin, in the first year racing by VPS, 92 Ligier, 136 straight away, 136.937. So we've gone from 139, 38, 37, 36, almost quicker than I can say it, and now a 135. 135.825, Matteo Quintarelli for the 23 Events Racing number 50 car, and what's that, nearly 9 tenths clear of the first best efforts of the Gebhardt Motorsport efforts of Oscar Tuño. So right now, the top 3 cars are all new teams to this championship.
But they've brought terrific talent to the party, and that means that we're already 3 seconds or so quicker than the bronze times that were offered, and still with 8 minutes and 45 seconds to go. There's scope for further improvement, but Matteo Quintarelli, as he did in the free practice sessions yesterday, really setting the pace from Axel Noss in the ANS Motorsport number 6 car, and Cedric Ultramar up there for CLX Motorsport, coming from a GT, more of a GT background in JS2R in the Ligier European Series, but now getting used to the greater downforce that a Ligier P3 25 offers, together with this twin turbocharged V6 Toyota engine, new for 2025 as well.
He's on course, Matteo Quintarelli, to get this into the 134s right now. It's an extraordinary lap underway from him. It's almost a full second up with the final sector still to come. We'll talk about some of the other new cars in just a couple of moments. Aviz Rodella for the CLX Motorsport 87 goes third. The sister car of Cedric Ultramar drops down to 4th. Lots of cars looking to improve. It is a 134.647 from Matteo Quintarelli. That's some lap.
Terrific. 1.3 seconds clear now of the Noss-driven ANS Motorsport car, and now goes Teo Mikuris in his Team Virage number 16. So sticking with the Polish outfit from one year to the next, but changing championships into the Michelin Le Mans Cup, and the Ligier European Series champion, co-champion from 2024, now bags a front row start potentially, but there's still quite a bit more that will change.
Absolutely. Up on his own time after Sector 1 is Matteo Quintarelli. Let's just bring you up to date as we watch still a reshuffle. Within a second now, ANS Motorsports Axel Noss in the number 6 ANS Ligier. The Ginetta, Hansa White Ricochet, 9th quickest at the moment. The 2 Ades, a little further back, Tom Fleming is 15th. On Henri Cubides Olate in the number 4 car is 16th, but lots of shuffling up and down the order. They're new, remember, and they do not come here with the opportunity of building on data with even the previous iteration of those cars. They've got a steeper hill to climb, but both teams telling me in the run-up to today's qualifying session, we'll make progress through the year. There's a degree of patience needed here. They'll find what pace that package have got. Under no illusions, they need to find it quickly.
Quintarelli over the line again. It was an absolute best through the first sector, but the second two, so sectors 2 and 3, were a touch slower than he has managed, so that was not an improvement, but he came fairly close to going better. Teo Mikuris and now Adrian David, second and third, so David skipping up a few spots for RHGP.
Yeah, he was second very briefly until being shuffled back by the latest effort from Teo Mikuris.
And that has put Axel Noss down to 4th position, but the Swiss still with a bit more up his sleeve potentially, not on this lap, but there may be a few laps where cars just ease back the pace to allow the tyres to recover for the best part of 3 miles, and then they'll push again.
You do ask yourself, that is such a good time from is that one, we don't often see it, a bit of a session killer in terms of the overall, but Theo Mercouris thinks not, as the ANS Motorsports number 6 Ligier Vaxel hits pit lane. Theo Mercouris is within a tenth of that pace after sector 1. Let's see how deep into this session the more pro drivers can actually stretch the envelope. Watching for any excitement coming out of the order here.
Joel Granfors, the Swedish driver for the sister R-Race GP entry, number 86, up to 5th position. He did 2 personal bests through sectors 2 and 3, 135.84. So there's only a second away. Cedric Ultramar has slipped a few spots. Oscar Tuño for Gebhardt Motorsport, who was, I think, lined up for an ELMS drive, but now finds himself in the Michelin Le Mans Cup in the 70 car, and again will be a force to be reckoned with.
Just keep an eye on the cars below our provisional pole position sitter, both Theo Mercouris and Adrian David. David has had a bit of a warning for track limits. They've not improved, but they've been consistent, and that could be just as important, Johnny, when we get into race conditions.
One or two other drivers with LMP3 experience are struggling for whatever reason. So Wyatt Brikacek for DKR Engineering, he's in the Ginetta, the only Ginetta in the field, remember. So it's not just a case of having Ligiers and Duquesnes. We have 2 Odesses, we have the Ginetta, so there's a bit more across the board to consider, I suppose. And very early on in the G61's campaign, so they'll still be finding their feet with that car.
This was Phil Bemire taking a look at the timing and scoring screens. Sure, taking a look in particular at the sister Reiter Engineering car. Identical livery on that car, number 25, Benja Valent. Another race winner, by the way, for the Asian Le Mans Series this year, the 50.
Axel Noss back in the pit lane for ANS Motorsport. That will surely be to park it now with only 3 minutes left on the clock. Matteo Quintarelli still circulating, but last time around did a lap time almost 10 seconds slower than his best. So
I'm not sure anybody's got anything close. He's pitting the car now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anybody's got anything close to that kind of pace.
134.6. So much faster than everybody else. It's almost 9/10 of a second clear of Theo Mercouris, who continues to pound round, but again not showing signs of being able to get into the lower 1:30s. So Mercouris surely will pit at the end of the next lap as the hooter in the background continues to go off as cars enter pit road. So we're not going to quite get to the 15-minute marker with the silvers, perhaps. Adrian David briefly shown us stopped on the racetrack, I noticed, number 85.
Timing glitch. Also on pit lane, by the way, and so we'll do no better than 11th, Wyatt Brikacek in the DKR Engineering Ginetta. Just looking to see where we've got the 2 Odess. They're a bit further back still. 15th for Tom Fleming, he's the better of the 2. It is the number 4 that actually props up the order in 18th. Under 2 minutes to go. And I think Matteo Quintarelli put this session to the sword pretty early on.
And that is a difference between the style of this qualifying session and the previous LMP3 Pro-Am session, as in that's a slow builder, and you know you generally get the quickest times on the final laps where the tyre performance has been eked out. These guys are going to hit it pretty hard early on. They'll slowly build the tyre temperature. You don't want to rush that, but by lap, certainly by lap 3, maybe even by lap 2, we're going to see some impressively good times, and then a drop-off in tyre performance, and everybody else then just working their way in relatively slowly. Theo Mercouris is still going round. I think he's going to come into pit road at the end of this sector. And also in now Cedric Ultramar for CLX Motorsport. Here's the 25 for Reiter Engineering and Benz Valent, Hungarian driver. 14th position for this, so still scope to move up the order if at all possible. we're not always going to see these drivers doing the qualifying, of course, because for those that have 2 silvers entered, they might chop and change a little bit depending on whether there's a circuit specialist at the various venues we visit later on in the season.
That's a very good point. A very good point indeed. It is often an aspect of these competitions that we overlook. So one of the questions we often ask journalistically, been here before, and sometimes you get a surprise.
Yes, in that they haven't ever.
Absolutely haven't.
In a single-seater career, maybe they just never visited these venues.
Quick shot over Marta Ferrari there, the AF of AF Corsa in the middle of shots, and that is the end of the session. And it is. Marta will head back to us. 23 Events Racing, I think, does have a link to AF Corsa, this car.
Well, that would fit with Amato floating around, and also, I mean, Quintarelli, he is Italian. Is he a bit of a protege for AF Corsa in the future?
He was in the Ultimate car in the Asia Le Mans Series, which was run by, checks notes, AF Corsa.
Right, yeah.
And if you look at the livery on that car, it's remarkably similar to the livery they ran in the old style car, which, by the way, is here in the back of the truck for Ultimate. There it is, very Italianate colours. Impressive from Matteo Quintarelli. And would be no surprise whatsoever if that's a young man that Amato Ferrari and crew have got their eyes on. That's the overall order, Johnny Palmer, after qualifying for LMP3, the final of the 3 classes this afternoon.
A very special effort from the 17-year-old Matteo Quintarelli then, as he displayed, as I say, in the previous sessions yesterday, and it's a 134.647, 0.8 of a second clear of Teo Mikuris for Team Virage in his number 16. Then Adrian David in the first of the Duquesnes for RHGP, number 85. Axel Noss for ANS Motorsport, number 6, is in 4th, ahead of Joel Grandforce, also for RHGP, and therefore also a Duquesne. Cedric Ultramars CLX Motorsport, number 97, 6th fastest. Gebhardt Motorsports, Oscar Tuño, 7th. The second of the CLX cars, driven by Alvis Rodella, was 8th. Then it's Artur Rodjan for CD Sport. And Forestier Racing by VPS for Charles Roussin completes the top 10. High time we got some reaction. So let's say a happy new season, first of all, to Steph Wentworth.
Joined by Matteo Quintarelli. Congratulations, first pole position of the Le Mans Cup season. How does that feel?
Yeah, great start. Couldn't have gone better, really. I just want to thank the team for the amazing car. Thank Arthur for it. Yeah, we'll see how the race goes this afternoon.
Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very cool, calm, collected customer, as you might expect, and yeah, with some terrific support, not only from this new team, 23 Events Racing, but also from those high up in AF Corsa. I think a lot is thought of Matteo Quintarelli. Still in his late teens. Could we be looking at maybe a potential Malte Jakobsen or similar, you know, in terms of talent? It's always a delicate situation about how you kind of uncap that and not wanting to give him too much kind of compliments too early in his career.
No, indeed. So we'll keep him battered down.
Keep him grounded.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're quite good at that.
Top 17 cars from the LMP3 class. The 18th quickest is our LMP3 Pro Am pole setter from ANS Motorsport. Then the Nielsen Racing number 4, Ades, and then we get into the LMP3 Pro Am runners all the way down to the GT cars to complete what is going to be a 42 car grid. Pole position there, of course, in GT3, the Team Motor Park AMG, the big growly V8. That's the top 40 completed. There's 2 more to add to the bottom, and potentially another couple to join a little later on. And Racing's number 64 car, didn't see where they had a problem.
No, nor me. But the 64 car not giving us a time of maybe that it's capable of. So Pierre Caffer will be joining Michael Doppelmayr in that car, but being wheeled back now for post-session scrutineering will be the number 50, Matteo Quintarelli, setting the time very swiftly indeed. 7 laps completed, but he did his quick lap on only lap 4. And that will be a fascinating battle over 2 hours later on today. We begin quite late in the day, actually. Local time, 6:20. We'll be on air, though, at 6 o'clock for the full build-up and the opening round of the Michelin Le Mans Cup, a 2-hour affair taking us into the evening. Thanks to Steph Wentworth and Graham Goodwin. From Johnny Palmer, join us later. Bye-bye.